Okay, it's time for heat treat, and I do the heat treat here in-house, because this is my house, in this little booger right here. This is an old-timey antique Sugar Creek kiln. I think it's Sugar Creek, Three Creeks, some kind of creek. They existed for about half a second back around 2010 or 11 or 12 or 9 or right in there, and they're just a basic kiln, no timer or programmable anything. So I have to sit here and kind of watch it and babysit it. But they were very affordable. I wish somebody would come out with something like this again. And maybe there is something. If you know of something, please let me know. I'm looking for a longer one. I sold my long one because big knives just weren't selling. They just weren't that interested. People weren't that interested in them because they're very expensive. And I get that. But I want to make some big knives for myself. And you know, somebody might pop along that wants a big knife. Doesn't mind paying the price and wants something like that. Shouldn't have sold it. Did. Need another one. Don't want to buy an even heat that's, what, $3,000? By comparison, when even heats were for this size, then they were, I don't know, 1,000 back in the day. These are like a couple hundred. And I've had that thing for 15 years. I changed the coil in it a lot, 5-6 times, but over a 15-year period, that's not bad. Anyway, that's what I gotta do, heat treat. All right, we're gonna do the 154 cm first, the stainless first, because I temper after I, okay, so let me explain. I put them in the kiln to bring them up to a hardening heat. And then I air quench this 154 cm. That means you just let it do its thing. You pull it out of the oven and you can let it just do its thing. Just sit it on something and let the heat dissipate, and that actually hardens it. Gets the steel to the hardest state it's gonna be in, depending on how you wanna fiddle with things. Or you can force air. You can cool it down a lot faster. I don't really know if that increases the hardness. I don't remember, but that's how I do it, and that's just because it's more convenient, it's faster. So I'll put them in the kiln, fire that baby up, get them up to temperature, air quench them with forced air, which is just a compressor. Then after that, we gotta temper them to knock them back in the hardness so they're not so hard that they're gonna break. All right, before I throw these things in the oven, I gotta review my cards here, just kind of think about things, make sure I got everything done that I need to get done before heat treat. Because I have multiple times forgotten to do things that I should have done before heat treat, and it was too late afterwards. This is a good example right here. The skin diver knife. This is kind of what it looks like underneath the tape. Hang on. It's got a commando grind with some serrated teeth on top. Yeah, that's 154 cm stainless, and I forgot to drill the holes in it before I hardened it. I didn't forget. I thought I could anneal it back with a torch, which I think I've done before, but I guess I haven't. It's been so long. I do it with O1 all the time, and I just wasn't thinking. Stainless, most stainless you can't do that with, or if you can, I don't know the procedure. It has to cool down, it has to heat up and then cool down slowly over a period of hours and hours and hours. Anyway, that's gonna be my own knife, experimental. Just epoxy holding the handle on, which Randall does all the time. So I'm gonna mess with that and do one up for me. That's how I acquire my own knives. I mess them up. Here we go. Kick her on up to high. Load them up, move them out. All right, these bad boys gotta get to 1900 degrees, somewhere in that vicinity. This kiln takes probably an hour and 15 minutes. And I'll show you the setup for how I quench them. Man, these little Black & Decker or similar type little fold-up desks, if you don't have a large workspace or whatever, and you want to do some working, crafts, whatever you want to do, these little things are handy. I recommend getting something like that. It's cheap and it's a good little work surface. Anywho, Black & Decker has not sponsored this video. Sponsored by Turley Knives. Is this background, is that bad? I don't know. This is probably bad, like cinematography. Here's what I use for quenching. Aluminum plates. I do not use a lot of people use the foil wrap to wrap their stainless steel in. So it's just a heavy, basically aluminum foil that they wrap their knives in, put them in the oven, and that keeps a lot of the heat treat scale off of them. But as you know, I like the heat treat scale. I leave that on the flat, so it's kind of pointless for me to do that. Now, I will say it's a hassle because the heat treat scale on the grind itself is really a pain in the neck to get off in the finished grinds, but it's worth it. And I'll put the knife, whenever I pull it out of the kiln, I'll put the knife in the quench plates, clamp it down so we can keep everything good and straight and flat. And then I'll take either my air compressor and hose and run it in there and cool it down really fast. That's the forced air quench. Or I'll take this little heater motor, this little heater fan. So I just wired a plug up on it and I just turn that on and I force the air in there, and it works just as good, probably a little better than the air compressor. The reason I say that is not better is because it's more convenient. I don't have to turn the compressor on, let it come up to pressure and all that noise. I'm gonna go back over those 01 knives. I checked the plunge lines on these knives. They're good to go. I'm gonna check the plunge lines on the 01. I think there's a couple I need to straighten out a little bit. I'm gonna do that. And then I am going to work on the handles. Just getting the materials out, getting things laid out, and if I have time, cutting the handle material and all that jazz. Won't glue it up yet because I don't really have the space and I probably won't have the time. All right, to clean up the plunge lines, I use one of these Gator Trizac belts. You can see how they kind of got these little notches and ridges on them. I used these years ago and I could not get them to last very long. And Adam Gray with AA Forge, good dude, love that guy. He told me, he's like, yeah, man, use those to clean up your plunge lines. He said, because you can take a diamond wheel dressing tool and just barely touch that as it's moving around, and he said it'll reveal that fresh grit. So these things, he's like, these things last forever because they got that tall grit pattern all over it. Thank you, man. That's a lifesaver, and he's at 100% right. These are good investment. These are probably the best value in belts that I know of. Didn't know that until Adam told me. Which brings me to the point. So I like to draw, I like art. That's one area that I've noticed this. I like to do plastic models. It's another area that I've noticed this. Knife making is an area I noticed this in. So many manufacturers put out products and they don't tell you how to use them. That drives me insane. It's just like this belt. I didn't see any information, not that it's not out there, I'm not saying it's not, but where I was buying these, I didn't see any information on how to do that and how to use this belt to its maximum efficiency. A little bit of bonus content. This knife came back to the shop for a sheath. This is a Crusader, number 22, in stainless steel with a pommel plate. This belongs to a buddy of mine. He brought it back here. He said he'd like to have a sheath. So I'm gonna try and do that for him. This is a zero height convex, and you can really only get these, order these from me in a full height grind like this. The reason being is that it's really hard for me to, what's a zero grind convex? I'm glad you asked. That's a convex grind, so not flat. You know what convex is, right? So it comes together like this at the point, at the edge, right? It's kind of rounded on each side, and it comes to a point at the edge. There's no secondary edge on these knives. Secondary edge would be meaning that you put a bevel on just the edge, and that's for toughness. On like a flat hide or a flat grind or a hollow grind, that's for toughness. That secondary edge gives you some, it makes the edge a little bit more blunt to be able to take impacts. Whereas you don't have to do that on on a convex zero grind, if you do it correctly, there's enough meat left behind the edge to just have that bevel come to a complete sharp point. That's what a zero grind convex is. The reason I don't do them on varied grinds is because it's extremely difficult for me to keep that flat, straight grind line that's on those knives. Do I have one here? Hang on. This straight line on a varied grind, it's very difficult to keep that when you're convexing to a zero edge. I'm flipping you off, sorry. I've done it before, and I'm sure there's makers out there that do it, but it's very difficult for me. So these are convex, flat main grind, and this will have a secondary. Right now it has no secondary. It's just a very thin edge. This is the rough grind. But whenever I'm done with it, I'll put a secondary on this. The reason I mention this is this knife right here, in my opinion, through many years of Wood's use, is the best Wood's grind you can get. This is a 3/16 thick knife, and I promise you it will slice better than any other 3/16 grind you'll find, better than 5/32 grind you'll find, and just as good as an 1/8" grind that you'll find. They're insane, and they're tough. So they'll be tougher than the equivalent knife, slicing ability wise and sharpness in 1/8". So this knife will be much tougher than that, and it will still slice as well. So this is Campmore paper. It's a little bit lighter than a telephone book or newsprint. That's a 3/16" knife, thick. What was I gonna say? I don't remember, but anyway, they're very sharp. It's a good grind. The only downside, quote downside, to these grinds is they don't look as cool. I mean, seriously, and that's okay. I get it. I like the looks of the varied grind or something with a grind line versus the full height grind. It just doesn't look as cool. But if you want utility and performance, that's my opinion, the best grind you can get for 1/8" through 1/4" stock for Wood's knife. These are the 01 knives. There's the stainless steel out of the oven. Those are tempered. They're still really hot, so I'm not gonna touch them. Look at this. Blue canvas micarta. Sci-fi orange spacer. Anyway, this is what's going on the Marauder. The customer likes blue and orange, and he said, yeah, just pick something out. So that's what I went with. Let's hope he likes it. Yeah, it's not bad. Y'all probably can't even see it. There we go. Now you can prevent that by dunking the entire thing in the oil, but I like to leave the tangs out just so they're maybe a little bit soft. Well, they're definitely a little bit softer. They don't come up to the hardness because they're not quenched. So it gives you a little bit more toughness, I think, especially on a hidden tang. That's it for today. I just want to end by giving you a sincere thank you, not just for watching, but for those of you that support me in all kinds of ways, and also for those of you that buy knives from me, those of you that ask questions. I just thank you. Thank you for allowing me to do a job that I love. It really is one of the greatest blessings in my life. Later, taters.